Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of the return of Electron with Rocket Lab launching Electron's 42nd flight. They are getting ready to launch the Moon God Awakens from the Hiamihia Peninsula in New Zealand in just over 30 minutes' time. We're waiting for Rocket Lab to go live, and once they do, we will begin to listen into them for their live updates for today's flight, the first Electron flight in just about 3 months since that last anomaly that occurred with the second stage. But we're glad to see Electron back, going for one more launch. We are currently watching the wind conditions down by the launch site through windy.com, so watching some of those high altitude winds. Electron is a much smaller vehicle than Falcon, so it does have tighter restrictions and criteria for what it's able to launch in. But as of about 45 minutes ago, Rocket Lab seemed to be saying that they were proceeding with flight and everything was going well, and now we're just waiting for them to begin their live feed. But before we dive into everything we know about today's mission, first, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad and here at TLP Network. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you all joining us here live. We're keeping an eye out for updates from Rocket Lab as they continue towards today's launch attempt of Electron. To start us off, take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. Also, take a moment to engage that like button. It really does help us out, and we're glad to have so many of you joining in with us here. We got Anthony, who's down at Starbase, Texas. We got Zafrani, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, in Israel. Great to see you. We have Peter is in the UK. Good to see you as well. Nancy is in San Diego. Mark is in LA. We got Marty is in Tennessee. Ginger, good to see you as always in Lakewood, Washington. Thanks so much for being here. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream. Rocket Lab has begun their live feed, so we are going to patch that in. They have not started a video yet. They just got their looping slide on, so we're going to keep that on screen until they do so. But as we get started, we'll run through everything we know about today's flight. As I said, today's mission is the Moon God Awakens. It's launching from LC-1B, the Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand. Today's payload is just one satellite on board going into a circular orbit of 575 kilometers, launching into an inclination of 42 degrees. Today's launch window is from 11 p.m. Eastern Time to 1 a.m. Eastern Time. So they are targeting the beginning of that window, and that window opens officially today. They do have this now, a 2-hour window daily moving forward. On board today is a satellite that is a synthetic aperture radar satellite for Japan-based Earth imaging company from IQPS, and I'm sure Rocket Lab will tell us more about that during today's flight. Now, today's mission, it will have deployment 57 minutes, 30 seconds after liftoff. So, for those that have been watching, it is a double launch day. We are counting down to the launch of Starlink from Vandenberg in California in the USA. An exciting Starlink tonight, so I hope you'll stay up with us. The first 6 Starlink to cellular satellites will be launched today as SpaceX begins to prepare to test that new system that they are hoping to bring online next year, where rather than getting a phone provider you're used to, you now use Starlink, which means you could have service anywhere in the world. A huge thing that would come to the world, bringing communication to that next level with cellular coverage, especially not only on land, but off land if you're cruising, planes, boats, and out in the middle of nowhere hiking. So great to see them starting that testing. They applied to the FCC to begin that for early December, and they're going to launch those first 6 satellites for Starlink direct to cell this evening if everything continues on time. That launch, though, is 1 hour 4 minutes after this launch, if the launch times hold. So, and as I say that, they update it, so it's never mind what I just said. It's not going to be tight. They have just delayed that Starlink by about an hour and a half, so it's fine. Don't worry about it. Stay here. Join us for that one later. I was going to talk about us doing a double stream, but we are now 26 minutes counting till launch for the return of Electron with Rocket Lab. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and I'll work on answering those live to the best of my ability. Also, if you haven't yet, join us over on the Discord. We've got a lot, kind of a launch party, watch party going. We've got Amy, Cap, and Ika watching in there. I'll be jumping in there in between the launches tonight as well, but that's where our community hangs out in between launches. Also, if you happen to be a TLP member with one of those helmets next to your name, or you want to be one, hit the join button. Starts at 99 cents a month. But you can join the Discord, and that's where you can get behind the scenes access. Got a lot of new stuff we're working on that we can't wait to show members, so stay tuned for that as well. Coming down through the countdown for today's flight, really what we're waiting to listen into is that go no go poll of the Rocket Lab mission control team that normally occurs about the 12-13 minute mark, and that final go that they do there is for them to enter terminal count at the 10-minute mark. We do expect Rocket Lab to be live by then for us to be able to listen into that. For today's mission, though, this cost of flight is $7.5 million for today. And it has a 1.2 meter fairing with a height of 18 meters for the vehicle in itself. The fairing of that 18 meters, the fairing actually makes up 4 meters of it. So quite a short rocket in general when you look at it between the first and the second stage. The vehicle that is on board will be joining a constellation after the QPS SAR-6 was already launched into orbit. This is SAR-5. They're small satellites, but they're high-performance SAR satellites that are lightweight, large, have a stowable antenna, and collect high-resolution images of Earth, even through the clouds or different weather conditions. They plan to have up to 36 of these that are going to be able to monitor any point on Earth within 10 minutes of requesting it. So be a great constellation to see ultimately be deployed. These are some of the early ones. Looking into the chat, if you guys have questions, you can tag us at the launch pad. I see Sharon just asking what the payload is. We just went through that one, so right there. T-minus 23 minutes, 40 seconds, and counting till launch. If you're just joining us, though, welcome. We are counting down to the return of Electron. It last flew in September, and ultimately, unfortunately, did have an anomaly during the separation of the second stage, and we saw that payload not succeed. That mission is I Will Never Desert You, and that was on September 19th. And so here we are, just short of 3 months, and we are back out to the pad. Rocket Lab's done the improvements or whatever they need to do to ensure that they hopefully don't have another issue. But this is a return to flight, but it does still have a customer on board. The customer that was on board the last Electron that did fail was actually NASA with their Acadia satellites. They have now moved those off to another launch provider and are launching with the other provider rather than launch Electron. Continue through the count. We'll take one more look at the weather here while we wait for Rocket Lab to get underway. Always an important one to be taking a look here at some of the different altitudes for the weather conditions. So this is looking at high altitude up to 13.5 kilometers. But if we bring it down, looking at the different altitudes, 11.7 kilometers down to 9 kilometers, bringing it down even closer here. You can see it stays pretty equal until you get to the lower, and then coming down all the way to surface level, it's actually very calm winds actually at the surface. But that's one of those things with rockets. You have to look not only at the pad, you have to look at the upper level winds, but you also have to look at them at the trajectory they're going to be flying. That's one of the biggest things we hear a lot with even Falcon 9 is upper level wind conditions. You have to keep in mind in that for if they are ever flying. We got this little pin that's right at the launch site. Today's launch is launching into a 42-degree inclination. So you can see that that will likely be going with the winds there. But we're hoping that Rocket Lab will give us a live view of the pad here in the next few minutes. It is a bit of a cloudier area. Pretty clear at the launch site right now, but lots of clouds in the general area. But if you happen to be down in New Zealand and see today's flight, if you capture photo or video of it, make sure you send that to us over on X by tagging us at tlpn_official, or drop it in the Discord, in the space chat. I'd love to see that, and we're going to work on trying to bring some of those up on future live streams as well. Taking a look at the visibility map, you can see there, pretty solid, wide open visibility, full visibility. So that's a good sign that the clouds aren't very thick and the conditions are really good for today's flight. So we're always keeping close eye on that when we're launching, especially a smaller rocket like Electron. Carrie, is my helmet blue or purple? I don't want a blue helmet. I want a red helmet. I would actually have to double check the which order it goes. I believe it's blue then red. It depends how long you remember. So if you're wondering about that, I'd have to pull that up. But depending on the helmets that you see next to people's names, that is all dependent on how long they've been a member. And we have some amazing people that are coming up. I think are at 2 years or past 2 years at this point. So truly incredible, and we thank you so much for your support. T-minus 20 minutes and counting till launch. Waiting for any more updates from Rocket Lab as we continue through the count. And as I say that, we do have one, and they're pushing out their live stream, so we expect them to be saying something very soon on that, and if we will listen in to that live feed once they begin so, as we count down T-minus 19 minutes, 36 seconds, and counting till launch of the return of Electron, launching from the Mejia Peninsula. And there we go, Rocket Lab getting underway, beginning their live commentary coverage. We'll listen in just a moment. The next major milestone will be that final go, no go to go into terminal count. That occurs at the 12-13 minute mark. So stay tuned for that. We'll be listening in for that good call. One of the biggest ones to listen for is MET. That is the call for weather. And that's the one that we always want to listen to for the wind conditions as we continue through the count. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream. T-minus 19 minutes and counting till the 42nd flight of Electron. It's incredible that we're already at that many. Today's mission is the Moon God Awakens, launching for LC-1B at the Mejia Peninsula. Let's listen in to Rocket Lab Mission Control as we continue through the final minutes of the count.
Electron is back on the pad at Launch Complex 1 as we count down to liftoff of Rocket Lab's 42nd Electron launch, a dedicated mission for IQPS called the Moon God Awakens. Liftoff is scheduled for 5 p.m. local time or 4 a.m. UTC on this beautiful summer evening on New Zealand's east coast. My name is Muriel Baker.
And I'm Prati Saknani. It is great to be joining you today from Rocket Lab Mission Control in Auckland, New Zealand. So far, we've had a smooth count for today's launch, with operators currently giving us the green light for an on-time launch. The weather is clear, winds are low, and it is a perfect evening to send our 42nd Electron to orbit. At T-minus 12 minutes, our launch director, Michael Pearson, will conduct a go-no-go poll, confirming all systems are ready in the final moments before launch. So we'll listen into that very soon.
Launching today on Electron is IQPS, a Japanese Earth observation company using synthetic aperture radar images to map Earth. Their payload is the QPS-SAR-5 satellite called Tsukuyomi, named for the Japanese god of the moon, and the reason behind today's mission name, the Moon God Awakens. Today's payload will join another IQPS satellite in orbit to form part of an eventual 36 satellite constellation capable of monitoring Earth at specific fixed points every 10 minutes, even at night and through bad weather conditions. Here's more about IQPS and their mission.
Time.
If you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. T-minus 14 minutes, 45 seconds and counting to the launch of that payload on your screen. Let's listen back into Rocket Lab Mission Control.
We are looking forward to adding another IQPS satellite to space on today's mission and thankful to the team for their patience in getting to the launch pad.
Today's mission is our first launch after a 3-month hiatus following our September 19th anomaly. In the time since, our anomaly investigation has determined that the most probable cause of the rocket failing was a highly complex set of conditions that allowed an unexpected electrical arc to occur within the second stage's power supply system. Our team's top priority has been to find a way to mitigate this concern. They investigated not only the root cause of the anomaly, but any other vulnerabilities across Electron. As a result, there are a couple of key corrective measures and changes that have been applied to today's and all future Electrons to make our launch vehicle that much more reliable.
That's right, we have improved our pre-flight vacuum testing regime with new instruments implemented in the pre-flight tests, both at the component level and the stage level, that can sense partial energy discharge right down to the picocoulomb. We've also sealed up the battery frame on the second stage that contains all of the high voltage connections and equipment and pressurized it down to about 0.5 psi for launch. That's why our view from the camera above the battery frame will look a little bit different if you've followed along with enough of our missions to spot the difference. It's important to remember, though, that overall we have had 37 successful orbital missions to place 171 satellites in orbit. And the past 2 years had been a flawless record of 20 successful missions, one after the other. So we can't wait for today's return to service to add to that satellite tally once again.
Absolutely, but right now we are only 12 minutes away from liftoff, and you know what that means. Up next, we have our Go No Go poll, where our operators in Mission Control give a status report on their systems to confirm whether or not we will proceed with the count. Let's listen into Mission Control and check in on how we're tracking for launch.
And all stations LD on mission, just a reminder that we've entered a hold at T-minus 12 minutes. Just working on bringing a couple final values within bounds, and we will be resuming the count shortly.
And if you're just joining us, you can see there the clocks have held at T-minus 12 minutes. This is something Rocket Lab can do. We do have a 2-hour launch window for today's flight. We are listening into the mission control nets as we await that final go, no go to enter terminal.
From Mission Control, you might have heard there that they called out for a hold in the launch countdown. Now, our launch operators can call a hold at any point in the countdown if they notice anything unusual about the rocket before liftoff. What that means is that we've paused the clock at T-minus 12 minutes to give Mission Control time to take a look at the data and see what has raised that red flag.
Stay with us on the broadcast, though, as we'll keep up the comms channel to Mission Control up, so with that, we can listen out for some updates.
So you heard there just a confirmation. If you're just joining us, we are now holding at T-minus 12 minutes and not counting, holding as we await for a new T0. It said they were finishing some things off there. Maybe sounded like something was out of limits. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the wind, but we'll wait to see if we have more information here. Electron does have a 2-hour launch window today. So, and we're very close in that count at that 12-minute mark. They just have to do that go, no, go. Once we have that, we'll get into terminal count and be go for flight. But we'll wait for more information as the team continues to work towards this. As we wait, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. Make sure you do that tag. We also have a poll in the chat. How do you think Electron's return to flight will go? Do you think 100% success, what of course we're all cheering for, or do you think we're going to have a failure during first or second stage flight, or do you think we might actually have a launch scrub today? 72% think 100% success, 17% think launch scrub. There's 10% of you. I sure hope you're wrong. But as we continue to wait for an update on that new T0, you can see on the left side of your screen a live view of Launch Complex 1B at the Rocket Lab's Mejia Peninsula Launch Complex. We also have a view inside Mission Control there as teams continue final workouts for today's count. Mars 2028 says, I'm worried about the wind today. That is something we were watching just before they began the live stream. I can bring that back up here. We'll keep Rocket Lab's audio on the screen, but we'll quickly flash to the winds. Over 30 knots at the high altitude. That's in the, looking anywhere between 10 and 15 kilometers in altitude. Rocket Lab is a smaller vehicle, so that is something that they have to watch to make sure that they'll have control. And we're waiting to see if we get an update on that T0 for today's flight. But they are anticipating, they said anticipating the hold, so they put that out right before they called it, to perform final checks for today's liftoff. So we're waiting to hear that. But as I said, send in those questions by tagging us at the launch pad. It's also a great time to send
LD on mission. This time we're going to be resuming the count imminently. Please be prepared for the go no go poll. We'll get straight into that as the count resumes. But please raise any issues you foresee immediately.
And that's what we wanted to hear. They're getting ready to go straight into it. So we are imminently awaiting that go no go. We will work to sync our clock here as quickly as we can. Once we have that new T0, once the clock begins counting. If you're just joining us, Rocket Lab Mission Control getting ready to resume counting at T-minus 12 minutes. Go straight into a go-no-go to enter terminal count as we get ready to watch Electron fly for the first time in 3 months as a return to flight following its failure in September. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream. You can keep sending your questions in. Just make sure you're taking us at the launch pad, and that countdown
the count has been resumed.
has begun.
We'll be proceeding straight into the go-no-go sequence. Stage.
Stages go.
Avionics.
Avionics is go.
GNC.
GNC is go.
VCon.
VCon is go.
T1.
T1 is go.
GC.
GC is go.
PLS.
PLS is go.
RSO.
RSO is go.
MET.
MET is go.
RF.
RF is go.
MM.
is go.
LD Shadow.
LD shadows go.
LD Sup.
LD sub is go.
Okay, all stations, the go-no-go sequence is complete. We are T-minus 11 minutes and 8 seconds and counting. We are go for terminal count at T-minus 10 minutes, and from this time, the 3-word hold procedure is in effect.
And that's what we wanted to
That was
hear.
Mission Control reporting Electron systems and the IQPS payload on board are confirmed healthy and good to go for an on-time launch. The range is ready to support. The weather continues to look good for liftoff at 5:05 local time or 4:05 a.m. UTC.
Today's mission is heading to a 575-kilometre circular Earth orbit at a 42-degree inclination to add IQPS's next SAR satellite to its growing smallsat constellation. With its constellation, IQPS is aiming for frequent Earth observation, day and night, that can contribute to social issues such as disaster prevention, defence and environmental research. Here's more from the IQPS team.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. T-minus 9 minutes, 12 seconds and counting till launch. They're playing through a video with some beautiful copyrighted music from Japan. But the nice thing is you've got the subtitles on your screen, so you can read along as they play this video as we continue now. T-minus 9 minutes and counting till launch of Electron on its 42nd flight, launching from Launch Complex 1B at the Mejia Peninsula in New Zealand. The count has resumed after a brief hold. The hold there lasted about 6 minutes while teams continued to go through some final checks. One of the biggest callouts met was go. That is the weather conditions. So wind is not something to be concerned at this point. It is something that sometimes they've said they'll do a temporary go where they'll give a final go later in the count. But we heard a solid go there. Nor Arts and Crafts, is this orbital? Yes, this is an orbital mission, putting a payload into orbit. Today's payload will be put into a circular orbit of 575 kilometers at a launch inclination of 42 degrees. If you guys have questions, keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those live as we continue through the count and deployment here today. T-minus 8 minutes and counting till launch. We're not going to do it just yet, but soon we're going to do that crew go, no go in our chat. If you haven't yet, take a moment, hit that join button. Just 99 cents a month gets you access to our TLP emojis during live streams. That's where you can get access to a whole bunch of different emojis that you hope to use most of them and sometimes not some. There's a preview of those in the chat. But it's a great way to help us continue to bring you the best possible coverage of everything space from around the world. As a reminder also, if you happen to be down in New Zealand and you take photos or videos of today's flight, make sure you send those to us over on Twitter by tagging it, or X, by tagging us at TLPN_official, or send it to us over on our Discord. It's free to join, where our community's hanging out tonight. We do have a double launch header, so make sure you stay with us. Join us in the launch party on Discord as we count down to launch of Starlink, launching the first 6 Starlink satellites to get ready to test Starlink Direct to Cell. So make sure you join us for that later this evening. I see we got Santa Joe, Amy, Cap, and Ika over there. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll be in there once we have liftoff of Electron. Now just under 7 minutes and counting till launch. Waiting to listen back into mission control. On board today is just a singular satellite joining a constellation up in low Earth orbit. There's one other one that it's joining, but in the future they hope to have up to 36 of these satellites, which would be able to take high-resolution photography of Earth, including through clouds at 10-minute increments at any point around the world. Let's look back into Rocket Lab Mission Control.
On the Electron's 42nd mission today. Now this mission is our 10th launch for the year so far, making 2023 our busiest launch year to date. Now as we wait for liftoff, let's take a closer look at the numbers behind Electron launches.
Welcome.
Rocket Lab loves their nice copyrighted music, so we're going to cut that out again, but you can see their amazing numbers on the screen here as they go for their 42nd flight in just under 6 minutes and counting. I wish we could see the pad. There we go. We can see the pad as Rocket Lab is now well into terminal count, getting ready for today's flight. T-minus 5 minutes, 45 seconds, and counting until launch. Catching up on the chat for some final questions as we go through the countdown here. Kabuto is asking what's the launch location from New Zealand. They are launching. I can very quickly bring it up on screen to give you an idea where they're launching from. Here's New Zealand, but we can zoom out. Obviously, weather. Switch to cloud be easier, but there is Australia just to the northwest of that pin. So that's where they're launching here today. Back to the live view, coming up to the 5-minute mark in the count for today's flight. Electron ready, T-minus 5 minutes and counting till launch. A couple of people talking about a beautiful island. It really is. Rocket Lab has one of the most beautiful launch sites, I would say, in the world. Saxiford up in the Shetland Islands, definitely one as well, coming online soon. So a few of these launch sites that are very unique locations that are incredibly picturesque, especially being kind of right on a cliff's edge by the ocean. As we continue now down through the count, T-minus 4 minutes, 20 seconds, and counting till launch of Electron 42, the return to launch flight for Electron since its failure last September, about 3 months ago. Let's listen back into Rocket Lab Mission Control.
Easy to forget to stop and smell the roses, but it is amazing to see those numbers.
Now back on the pad, we are tracking no issues with the launch vehicle. IQPS's payload remains healthy and the weather is looking green for an on-time launch. So here's what you can expect next. At T-minus 2 minutes, the flight computer on Electron will take over the launch countdown. Then at T-minus 1 minute, 30 seconds, we should hear the call that LOX loading is complete on Electron.
Shortly after that, at T-minus 1 minute, we can expect confirmation that the launch vehicle's first and second stages are pressurized for launch, followed by the final countdown to liftoff at T-minus 10 seconds. Let's hand over now to Mission Control.
All stations, LD on mission. From now on, there should be no red flags in your critical LCCs. Beacon, LD mission.
LD Vicon.
Lock auto sequence and confirm.
Confirmed, locked.
And please confirm all expected primary flight computer ASGOs are green.
Confirmed, all ASGOs are green.
And all stations, we are go for auto sequence start at T-minus 2 minutes. LD is go for launch.
T-minus 2 minutes, 10 seconds, and counting. You heard there the launch director has given a go for launch. At this point, if anything goes red on the launch board, they do have to call a hold. T-minus 2 minutes and counting. Let's see that go, no go in the chat.
Internal power. Ground power is disabled. Vehicle is fully on internal power. AFTS is green and enabled for flight.
Great call outs there. Electron now on internal power. You can see the strong back is retracted. T-minus 1 minute, 40 seconds, and counting till launch.
LOX load is complete. System is in recirculation. Anti-geysering is disabled.
Now just under T-minus 55 seconds and counting.
Stage 1 and Stage 2 tanks are pressed.
Incredible views of the launch complex down there, Mejia Peninsula. T-minus 45 seconds.
High flow engine purge enabled.
T-minus 25 seconds. The return to flight for Electron. T-minus 20.
T-minus 20 seconds and counting. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
Has cleared the pad, T-minus 25 seconds into flight. Continuing on a nominal trajectory. First launch in 3 months. As a return to
Electron
flight.
has lifted off from Launch Complex 1 and we are 34 seconds into our flight. With Electron now clear of the pad, soon we will approach max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure, the moment of the most amount of stress against the rocket. So let's listen in for the call from Mission Control that Electron has passed max Q.
Vehicle is supersonic, approaching max Q. High voltage discharge nominal. Cleared max Q.
And there you have it, Electron has cleared max Q. A beautiful and nominal mission so far, now up 15 kilometers in altitude as the rocket reaches speeds of more than 2,100 kilometers.
Next up are 3 mission milestones that happen in quick succession. First up, we have MECO, or main engine cutoff. This has been all 9 Rutherford engines on the first stage throttled down and then shut off completely. Very quickly after that, we have the separation of the first and second stages, and you'll see that main booster tank fall away from Electron's second stage. We then have the ignition of the single Rutherford engine on Electron's second stage, as the mission continues to orbit. Those calls should be coming up from our operators in Mission Control very shortly.
Stage 1 propulsion holding nominal. Stand by for MECO in roughly 30 seconds.
$15 seconds to MECO.
Entered burnout detect mode.
MECO confirmed.
Stage separation successful.
Stage 2 ignition confirmed.
As you can probably tell from that applause, we have had a successful MECO, stage separation and second stage engine start for Electron. Up next will be the fairing jettison, where the 2 halves of Electron's protective fairing split and fall away from the vehicle to expose IQPS's satellite to space in preparation for payload deployment. Now we might see those 2 halves on screen too as we clear that next milestone.
Fairing jettison succeeded.
That was them there on your screen. Electron's fairing halves have fallen away as planned. At 3 minutes and 42 seconds into the mission, the single Rutherford engine on Electron's second stage continues to burn bright as we make our way to orbit.
High voltage battery
We have a
discharge
new
nominal.
view of the engine's nozzle that includes a nitrogen bottle that you can see on the top left of your screen, which has been introduced as part of an update to the second stage system. Now, this is providing pressurized gas to the enclosure covering the second stage electrical system, helping to minimize the chances of electrical arcs.
Stage 2 propulsion nominal.
Soon we'll reach a mission milestone unique to Electron, the battery hot swap. Electron's fuel pumps are battery powered, and once we deplete the first set of batteries, they're of no use to us anymore, and so we swap them out with a fresh set, ejecting the depleted ones so that they don't hitch a ride to orbit. That milestone should be coming up at around 6 minutes and 43 seconds into the mission, and so we have a while to wait for that milestone just yet.
We are now 4 minutes and 42 seconds into flight and well on our way to orbit. So far, we have successfully lifted off, cleared the pad and passed through max Q, as well as had main engine cutoff and stage separation. Now, attached to Electron's second stage is the kick stage, where you can see IQPS's satellite right there, which is poised for deployment to a 575-kilometer orbit. If you take a look at the top graph on the right there, you can see that we have about 61% of propellant remaining, which will take us through to about T plus 9.5 minutes, where we will have engine shutdown and kick stage separation.
240 seconds remaining. Guidance is nominal.
The Stage 2 Rutherford engine continues to perform nominally, and Electron is climbing steadily to its target apogee of 575 kilometers above Earth. And what a beautiful view we have so far. The IQPS payload atop the kick stage is less than an hour away from its home in orbit.
Throttling down. HVB discharge nominal, approaching.
As we approach battery hot swap in the next 30 seconds or so, keep your eyes peeled because sometimes you can catch a glimpse of these battery packs falling away. Reminder that it would look a little different than usual due to the remedial work done on the Stage 2 power pack. Let's listen in for the call out for mission control.
Hot swap successful.
That was the call. That battery hot swap is confirmed and the mission is proceeding as planned. In about 3 minutes, Electron's second stage will experience SECO, or second engine cutoff. Now, much like main engine cutoff, the Stage 2 Rutherford will throttle down before the kick stage separates as it continues on to payload deployment.
HVB battery discharge holding nominal.
All right, a quick check in on the dials at T plus 7 minutes and 28 seconds. Electron is traveling at a speed of over 17,000 kilometers per hour and approaching an altitude of about 242 kilometers, which with some quick maths brings us another 300 or so kilometers to go in this mission. Now, after we reach that target, we will have a coast phase of about 45 minutes as the kick stage scoots around the other side of Earth and back into position, ready for payload deployment.
Stage 2 propulsion still holding nominal.
The team and mission control are closely monitoring the Stage 2 burn as we get closer and closer to SECO, or second engine cutoff. Just a minute to go until that milestone, with Electron and the IQPS payload remaining healthy. Reminder that this version of Rutherford is designed for the vacuum of space. So the glowing nozzle you see on your screen there is much larger than the sea level variant of the engine used on Stage 1. This large nozzle extracts more energy from the exhaust as it expands, increasing the performance of the engine.
Entered burnout detect mode.
Guidance is on total, 25 seconds remaining.
As we mentioned before, one of the final milestones coming up for this mission is SECO. Now, we will see the second stage engine throttle down ahead of shutoff, then the kick stage, which the satellite is attached to, will separate and begin its coast phase. So let's listen in to Mission Control for the calls.
SECO confirmed.
Nominal transfer orbit achieved. And stage 3 separation confirmed.
And with that, the reservoir engine on Electron's second stage has successfully shut down, and stage 2 and the kick stage have cleanly separated. The kick stage will now enter what we call a coast phase. For the next 45 minutes or so, the kick stage will be in an elliptical orbit around Earth before the Curie engine ignites, raising the kick stage's perigee to put us in a circular orbit. From here, we will deploy IQPS's Tsukuyomi satellite to its destination in orbit.
So while we wait for that deployment, we'll take a break on the webcast now and be back with you at around T plus 50 minutes. See you back here soon.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You are seeing on your screen the live tracking there of the kick stage of Electron, a incredible return to flight for RocketLab. Right off the bat, congratulations to their team, coming back less than 3 months since they had an anomaly with their second stage, and they are back in orbit. We are now in that coast phase, as they said. Payload deployment expected 57 minutes, 30 seconds into flight. So we are going to be staying live through that, tracking that kick stage as we go. But if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. But if you're heading out, make sure to engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage. Docking, undocking, or return to Earth. We're tracking the undocking of Cargo Dragon in the coming days, and then, of course, counting down to the launch of Axiom's third private mission to the space station in early January. So make sure you don't miss those as well. But yeah, keep sending in those questions while we continue to await payload deployment. For today, we are currently in that coast phase. Get that on the screen there. We'll work on answering those live. As also, reminder, there is a second launch happening this evening. Starlink 7-9 now targeting 10:33 p.m. Pacific time, or 1:33 a.m. Eastern. And on board are 23 Starlink V2 minis, but more importantly are the six first Starlink satellites that SpaceX will be using to test Starlink to cellular. So make sure you join us back for that as well. But we're not going anywhere. Staying live through payload deployment to answer you guys' comments and questions. So we appreciate that. Ted, thanks for the feed. Thanks so much for being here. Good to see you as always. The Martian, well, good to see you as well. Thanks for being here. Dreamland, Artemis 2 launch is less than a year now. Well, that was the plan. Everything is pointing that Artemis 2 is slipping, including NASA. At this point, Artemis, there's no official date, but 2024 is basically off the table. I would say we're now targeting the first half of 2025. I do not think we're in the second half of 2025 at this point, but 2024 is off the table. Will we see Artemis 2's SLS on the pad at the end of 2024? I think that is highly likely to see a wet dress. Fortunately, that is slipping. If you guys have questions, though, keep sending those in the chat. We'll work on answering those live. Nora, are you a former NASA engineer? I wish. Yes, please. You wouldn't want me to do that. I'd probably break something. But no, I started the launch pad. We're coming up to our 3-year anniversary, which is absolutely crazy. There's so many of you that have been here since the day one. I'm so grateful for all of you getting to help me live my dream of being part of the space industry. And we're excited to take you and bring you the best coverage of everything space from around the world, just like for tonight, watching the launch from RocketLab. We've got a lot of interviews planned for this year, some exciting videos to kick off the new year as well that we're working on, featuring Starlink and different things, so make sure stay tuned for those. And our TLP news channel is going to really start kicking off in the new year. We've been working with our team on plans for that. Make sure to stay tuned on our secondary channel, the Launchpad News, where you're going to get daily multiple times a day space news updates of the latest space stories from the space industry around the world, as well as a weekly recap, as well as some more weekly videos happening on the main channel here. Jessica, good night TLP, good night Zach. We need a rocket. I'll see what we can do, Jessica. That's a new one, but I can see what we can do. There's always April Fools and stuff, right? Yeah. Denise, I'll probably be watching Vandy launch, but look out the window to see it too. That is awesome. I hope you have great clear skies for tonight's flight as well. Looking at the poll, 325 of you took part. So far, 73% of you are correct. We still have to have payload deployment, and we've still got a bit of time for that to happen. So we're going to take a commentary break. You can keep sending in your questions in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those as we await payload deployment. 57 minutes, 30 seconds into flight. Stay with us right here on the launch pad.
Hello and welcome back to the webcast of Rocket Lab's 42nd Electron launch, a dedicated mission for IQPS. In case you missed it, today's mission has progressed nominally so far with a perfect liftoff from Launch Complex 1 at 5:05 p.m. local time in New Zealand, followed by a clean first and second stage burn all the way to orbit.
While we were on our break, our small but mighty Curie engine on the kick stage ignited to circularize our orbit. There's a few more seconds left in this burn, then the engine will shut down and the moon god will awaken. Let's hand it back over to Mission Control as we listen in for those final calls.
Curie engine
LOS
cutoff
orders.
confirmed.
That's confirmation from Mission Control. The Curie engine has shut down. We are about 40 seconds away from payload deployment of the Tsukuyomi satellite, ready to join the other QPS SAR-5 satellite already in orbit. Let's kick it back to Mission Control for confirmation of payload deployment.
Payload deployment confirmed.
You heard it there from Mission Control and from the applause from our team. Payload deployment is confirmed. The moon god has awoken and Tsukuyomi is now in orbit, ready to perform its mission to provide Earth observation imagery in rain, hail, or shine. A massive thank you to the team at IQPS for entrusting us with your mission. And congratulations to the Rocket Lab team on our 42nd Electron launch.
That brings us to the end of today's broadcast, but keep an eye out on our social media channels for more footage and photos from today's beautiful launch. Don't forget that we are always recruiting. If anything you've seen excites you, be sure to check out rocketlabusa.com/careers to find your place in our family.
And there we have it. Rocket Lab is back with payload deployment confirmed. That's going to do it for the first of 2 launches happening tonight. We are counting down to the launch of Starlink. SpaceX has delayed that launch to the very end of the launch window, so we hope that you will join us for that. We will be going live in a couple of hours, so stay tuned for that as SpaceX targets the end of that launch window for the first Starlinks with Starlink to cellular direct on board. SpaceX currently targeting 12:30 a.m. Pacific time, so we hope you'll join us back here then. But that's going to do it for our live coverage of the return to flight of Electron. Electron 42 is now complete, and we'll see you next time because space is better together. Good night.